Hello everyone, this is Dr. Richard Fleming and today is Wednesday, October 28th, 2020. Yet another video on SARS-CoV-2. If you're like me, you're pretty tired of talking about it or hearing about it. And in my particular circumstance, since we've already completed the research, analyzed it, and submitted it for publication, I'm more than ready to be done with it. SARS-CoV-2 is a virus that is spread through the airways by people coughing and sneezing on one another. I'm tired of listening to the argument about whether you should or shouldn't wear masks. I'm tired of listening for people to say that you should wear a mask because you're only spreading it to others without any real scientific evidence to prove that's true. And I'm tired of listening to people say, burn the mask because it's taking away our political freedoms. Neither one of those is a scientific argument. I'm tired of listening to people say a vaccine is just around the corner. In the history of mankind, and please feel free to let me know if you think I'm wrong, but do it with some facts, there has never been a successful single-stranded RNA virus produced by human beings. SARS-CoV-2 is a single-stranded RNA virus. We keep playing around with the numbers, deciding what we can and cannot accept as successful development of a vaccine without any proof that this is going to have any impact on this virus at all. In fact, vaccines don't stop the transmission of viruses. If you think that they do, then you're just simply not well enough informed to understand how viruses and vaccines work. We took our 10 months to do our study with 1,800 people. There are treatments for SARS-CoV-2. Medical, scientifically proven, scientifically measured treatments. The first paper has been accepted. There's 3 more to go. It astonishes me that there's no more curiosity among the scientific community to grasp why people die with SARS-CoV-2 and what the treatment should be. It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling to watch scientific experts come out and spend their time reprimanding people for not wearing masks or staying 6 feet apart. Side note, there's no data that shows that 6 feet is some magic number. There's no scientific paper that shows that short of you coughing or sneezing these virus particles out, that you've actually stopped the transmission of the virus with a mask. There's no scientific evidence to show that the development of this vaccine will stop the spread of the virus. There is no scientific evidence, short of the data that we just submitted, that shows that any of the drugs that are being used have an effect on SARS-CoV-2. Now, I know that they do, some of them, and some of them when used with a combination of drugs actually interfere with each other. We measured it. Some of them we know are more successful at one time or other of the infection. And some of them we know that while they may not appear to actually treat the infection up front, are critical to allowing the next step of treatment to work. But that's only something that you learn if you do the research to get the answers. The experts that you're listening to, from NIH, from NIAID, from CDC, from Public Health, from Health and Human Services, from the World Health Organization, have not given you that type of data. Many of the doctors that are out there talking about their treatments have not given you that kind of data. So they are legitimate questions to ask. How do you know? Knowing is not just about giving a bunch of medicines and watching to see whether people die. Knowing requires measurement. But a paper that requires collection of that type of information and put together for people to read is a very scientifically challenging paper for people to read because there is a lot of data in it. So expect it to take time for my research to be published. The first paper has been accepted, but it is the foundation paper. That's why it was submitted first. There are 2 papers looking at specific case examples, one of 1 case, one of 7 cases, where we looked at failure of one drug, but the importance of that drug in making the next drugs work. And finally, the landmark paper of 1,800 people that took the time and the patience and detail to sort out what drugs work and in what combinations. Now, if you're watching this and you think that it's important for government officials to know about this, let me tell you, they're not interested. The government officials that are frequently on television talking about SARS CoV-2 don't want any help. They have everything under control. That's what they say. They don't want outside information. They don't want data. They want to continue to receive the monies that they are receiving from the people they're receiving it from. And the journals, the medical journals have become biased political newspapers. I won't say which journals are on what side, but it's obvious. Go read them. They have a slant, and they are not looking for anybody to raise questions about the validity of data. They are only looking for people to tell them that what they have been doing is right and that the people that are funding them are good folks. Make no mistake about it. There are deep pockets funding everybody on social media that's talking about this who has a political perspective that they are trying to push and an agenda. They are not focused on the American public. They are not focused on telling you how viruses infect people and what types of drugs should be looked at and why. They are focused at controlling the game. They are focused at causing you to be fearful so that you will depend upon them. They are focused on getting you to vote in these elections for the people they want in power. Deep pockets by billionaires, many of them who have been convicted of criminal activities or barely escaped investigation prior to those criminal activities. And these big corporations that they're connected with have a vested interest in the outcome. I've personally experienced the consequences of bringing forth misinformation by Big Pharma that interfered with its pocketing of billions of dollars of profit at the expense of misinformation to patients looking for answers. Tomorrow I'm going to be joining Kevin W. McCairn on his YouTube channel, and we're going to talk about medical journals. We're going to talk about deep pockets, and we might get into some of the information about the research. Join us tomorrow. Check into his channel as we get ready to expose some of the truths about the people that have been pulling the wool over your eyes and not telling you the whole truth. That's a phrase I love because it was once used by a federal judge as he decided that the jury didn't need to know the whole truth and the wool could be pulled over their eyes.
The government's got to be permitted to get to the facts of this.
And the jury's got to be permitted to get the whole picture.
Not if you set it up in such a way that, first of all, that's not true as a theoretical matter. Because as a theoretical matter, the data analyst in this case assumed that it was entirely fabricated, whether it's right or not. And he gives the qualification, so the jury will have that qualification, and you can argue that qualification.
But I won't be, unless the jury knows the truth, I won't be permitted to argue the truth of the qualification.
That's exactly right. And the reason that you won't be is because he says overall there is simply no data-driven evidence that the Fleming data set is other than would be expected under a legitimate study. While there are several aspects of the blank data, which is the comparative data set, that might cause concern, there is no definitive indication that these data were fabricated either, absent the knowledge that that was the case. This would not be unexpected if the blank data, the comparative data, were patterned after the Fleming data. But if the blank data, comparative data, were fabricated from scratch, they should be preserved as a case study against which to test statistical methods of unusual patterns in falsified data.
That's the problem, Judge, is I did pattern my data directly proportionally to Dr. Fleming's data. So the jury's only going to get a piece of the action, and now I've turned myself into a witness in this case.
Well,
and that can be prevented.
Yeah, by pulling the wool over the jury's eyes.